Hey everybody, my name's Scott. Thanks for watching. My nephew Brandon and his fiancee Jessica are getting married in Florida, and I thought it'd be fun, since they both have ties to Michigan, I would make them this Michigan-shaped cutting board. So if you want to watch me stumble through this project, stick around.
This is actually the second cutting board I made. The first one was a Mother's Day present. It basically was just a rectangle, and the first half of this project is just making that rectangle. So I'll put a link in the description of that cutting board video, and I won't be going over too much detail on making this one. So here I'm just doing the glue up. I'm using Titebond 2 wood glue. It seems to be the one that all the woodworkers are using on YouTube, so I figured if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. Those white boards are used to keep the whole project from kind of buckling in on itself. It's just a piece of wood that I wrapped packing tape around so the glue didn't stick. Now I'm just running the piece through the thickness planer, getting all the dried glue off and making sure that it's a uniform thickness. There's something oddly satisfying about running this through the planer and having it take off just a thin layer each time. I have no idea why I just did that with the board and those rollers. This is a random orbit sander. It doesn't just spin, it rotates in sort of a random pattern, so you don't get swirl marks. It's one of my favorite sanding tools in the shop. Does a really good job. I started out using 60 grit sandpaper, worked my way up to 120, then 220, and then finally 320. Makes for a nice smooth surface. And I'm just setting this down on the table saw, which is the flattest surface in my shop, just to make sure that the cutting board is nice and flat. Alright! I was originally going to try to print out a template, and I just couldn't quite get the dimensions and the ratios right. And so my mother-in-law actually drew this out freehand, and it turned out better than I could have hoped for. I'm listening to a podcast in the background called Making It. It's a podcast with 3 YouTube makers. Bob Claggett, David Picciuto, and Jimmy DiResta. They all have really cool YouTube channels. I suggest you check them out and check out their podcast, Making It. This was my first time using a bandsaw, as you'll be able to see later on in the video, but I had to learn all the adjustments, and that was kind of a learning curve. Here I made myself a test piece. I wanted to see if I could actually use the bandsaw, and here I'm just remembering to put my safety glasses on. A couple of safety tips here. I think safety glasses is probably the most important piece of safety hardware in the shop, followed by hearing protection. And here's where my lack of experience on the bandsaw shows through. There was quite a few things I was doing wrong here, and I went online to see if I could figure out just exactly how I could get better at this. And well, number one, it turns out that I was using the wrong blade. I was using a blade that's basically used for resawing long pieces of wood. I needed to use a much thinner blade if I was going to make these tight curves. But after I was able to hack my way through the test piece, I started at it. not knowing that I was using the wrong blade on the bandsaw, it started to get a little frustrating. So I thought, oh, let me see if I can use the jigsaw. Yeah, that might work. People use jigsaws to cut out tight corners in their projects. And it was about the time that the smoke started bellowing from the project. I said, maybe not the jigsaw. Alright, let's try this again. Here I'm making relief cuts to help me make some of these curved cuts. I decided here that the line wasn't dark enough, so I took a carpenter's pencil and just made the outline a little darker so I could see better. And here I'm using the oscillating spindle sander to sort of cheat my way into getting the outline here over by Traverse City. As I was cutting everything out, I started to get worried that the proportions weren't going to be right. That little nook up there by Traverse City and even by the bay there, by the thumb area, I was starting to worry that the proportions weren't matching up to what the state actually looked like, and I was concerned that it wouldn't look exactly like a map of the state of Michigan. And then I sort of took a step back and realized the people I'm giving this to are probably not going to use this as a navigational aid. So I just had to relax and not worry about using this as a road map. Sanding the bottom was a little tricky because Michigan's southern border is not actually a straight line, thanks to the Toledo War of 1835 and 1836. But I made my way through it. So I just had to do my best sanding it with the belt sander and with the oscillating spindle sander here. The oscillating spindle sander does a great job getting into those tight corners, and it was an invaluable tool. I would not have been able to finish the project without it. I basically used the large drum on the large surface areas and the smaller ones obviously for the tight corners. Here I'm just getting some of the even tighter corners that I can't get with the oscillating spindle sander with the random orbital sander. lots of sanding. This was my new router table. I'd never used a router table. In fact, I'd never used an oscillating spindle sander for that matter. And it didn't take me too long to sort of get into the rhythm of using the router table. I'm just using a 1/4 inch round over bit. All right. And more sanding. It was pretty much at this stage that I sort of thought, I can actually pull this off. There's going to be some corners here that I'm not going to be able to get with the random orbital or the oscillating spindle sanders, and we'll get to that in a minute. So here I'm just taking a carpenter's pencil and I'm wrapping a sanding disc around it, and that's how I'm getting into some of these tight corners. Now comes a bunch of hand sanding. I just had to get comfy and get to it. Yeah, in the background there, I'm actually watching one of David Picciuto's YouTube videos. And more sanding. I think I went all the way up to 220 and then finally 320. And the 320 really gives it a ultra smooth finish. The important thing here is you take your time and you make sure you get all the surfaces. And here I'm just using cutting board oil, which is basically just food grade mineral oil. And this is my favorite part of the project. Putting the mineral oil on, rubbing it in, it really makes that grain pop. I'm using maple and mahogany, by the way. And I just love the contrast here. This is the point of the project where all the hard work starts showing and everything starts coming together. And I'm putting 2 or 3 coats of mineral oil on each side. I'll put one coat on, wait for it to soak in, put another coat on. But it really makes that grain pop. Love that contrast of the two woods. Yep, I'm happy with it.
Hey, thanks again for watching. This was a very challenging but very fun project to do. I learned a ton. Again, I'd never used a bandsaw or a router table or even an oscillating spindle sander before. Again, this is by no means a how-to or instructional video because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. But hopefully it can serve as maybe an inspirational video to showcase that if somebody like me with virtually no woodworking experience can make something like this, maybe you can too. So as always, if Scott can, you can. And congratulations, Brandon and Jessica.
Hey, if you liked the video, please give it a like, share it, feel free to leave a comment. And I'll put a link in the description to the channels of the other YouTubers I mentioned, as well as the first cutting board video I made. So go check them out.
Again, this is by no means an instructional or how-to video. Michigan-shaped cutting boards, since they both have ties to the state. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. My name is Scott. Hey everybody, my name is Scott. My name is Scott. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, my name is Scott. So if you want to... Hi everybody, my name is Scott. Okay. The last thing I did was notch out this little hole right here. So they can use it to hang on the wall if they want to. I just used a drill bit and then chiseled it out. But overall, I think it turned out really, really well, and I hope they enjoy it. And okay, let's try that one more time. Is that good?